What's up, YouTube? We back today, baby. It's a Monday morning. We getting this started. We out of the job. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to follow this this message. This is your boy Lascel, the M.B.A. back at you. And today we're going to be discussing a topic about 5 tips to better parenting, especially in our community. But before we get started, I want to, as always, start this off with, if this message resonates with anybody, please feel free to share it, like it, and subscribe to it. And I want you guys to start giving comments about certain things, because it gives me an insight of how you feel about the messages, what you might have felt I left out, what you think I may have gotten wrong. I'm open to that. Let's have a discussion. But today, let's get started now with 5 tips to better parenting. So we have to, in our community, we have a lot of things going on. In the past 20, 30 years, a lot of things have changed as far as parenting goes, right? So when it comes to parenting, a lot of people have different parenting styles. A lot of people today do not have, unfortunately, the 2-family household. There's a lot of going back and forth if there is 2-parenting or co-parenting involved at all. But there's a few things we definitely need. I think we need to take some insiders with these kids, because we're spending a lot of time providing for kids, but not putting and investing in them personally. And those things, regardless of what, will come back to bite us in how we interact with our kids, especially as they get older and developing those relationships. So a couple of things we're going to start with. Rule number 1, we're going to get into protect your kids. Now, let me give you context for that. We're not talking about just protecting your kids like if somebody comes out there's a lot of people out there that want to say, you know what, if somebody mess with my kid, I'll beat their ass. Okay, that's fine. Protecting your kids is not just physical. Protecting your kids is protecting your kids against negative input. We talking about not somebody talking down to them, but giving them bad behaviors. Having that dude around, or having those family members around that smoke weed and have the negative connotations, like, for instance, teaching them bad things, all right? You have a lot of people that don't understand how their kids, when they get in their teens, become certain things, and it's because they've been around it all their life. If you don't want your kids to be gangbangers, criminals, things of that nature, why would you have them in their most cumulative, their most delicate and most absorbed? They absorb so much, like sponges, when they're like between 2 and 7. Why would you have those kids around people who are gangbangers and criminals? Be very discerning about the energy that you have in your home and have around your kids. Just because somebody may be a provider, or just because somebody may have certain great traits as far as relationships with you, whether it be romantic, whether it be friendship, whether it may be sibling. At some point, when you become a parent, your number one priority is making sure that child grows up to be a productive member of society. And I think a lot of people lose that. They think that just because they provide for their kids and give them good clothes that maybe are a little bit pricey and it's kind of ridiculous, and items that they really want, that they're a good parent. Good parenting is teaching your kids and leading your kids to go in the right direction. And if you're not doing it yourself, it becomes kind of conflicted. And that leads me to point number 2. Kids do what you do. A lot of people lose track of that. They think because their kids is 2 and 3 that you can just tell kids what to do, and as long as you're telling them the right thing, that they're going to be right. Then you wonder, and you hear this quite a bit, when they become 14, 15, and you're butting heads with them, that they're just like you. To piggyback on the first point, when you're raising kids, it's not just about protecting them from negative energy. It's also about changing yourself. It's about going and saying, hey, maybe I'm doing this. I don't want my child to transfer to my child, because children are going to do what they see, not what you say. Maybe I need to change this trait about myself. Maybe if I don't want a kid who talks back, maybe I need to stop talking back to other people. If I don't want a kid who's aggressive, maybe I need to stop being so aggressive in most situations. Maybe that shouldn't be my first option. Maybe I don't need to cuss and rant and rave if I'm expecting this child to not cuss, rant, and rave, right? So remember this at all times. Kids do what you do. So if you running around the house as a woman and you think it's cool to be twerking and doing exceptionally sexual behavior, not in your bedroom, but just around friends and all that other stuff, this is what kids is going to look back on. And they're going to reminisce and say, I remember my mom's was twerking around the house. I remember my mom's was doing this with her boyfriend, so when I get older, that's what I'm going to do. They aspire to be adults, and the first example of adults are you. So what you take as liberties is what they're going to look forward to. And they're not going to be able to wait to do it a lot of the time. All right? So that's tip number 2. Remember that kids do what you do. Now, this goes along with how you interact with your kids, right? So tip number 3 is stop underestimating your kids. Now, what does that mean? A lot of people underestimate their kids. They don't understand their kids are manipulating situations. Kids will manipulate the hell out of you if you allow them to, right? They'll come into a situation and know that they become first and foremost. So they will manipulate a romantic relationship. They'll manipulate family members against family members. They'll manipulate schools to make it seem like they're lying. And at some point, you have to stop underestimating your kids. Not to say that they're malicious or they're bad kids, but kids are children. They're creatures of emotion. They don't have a moral compass unless you give it to them. So when they start doing that bad behavior, I know for a fact that we all want to have our kids back. Sometimes to have our kids back is to tell them when they're wrong and somebody else is right. And to follow up with that, because it takes a village to raise a child. What that means is not a whole bunch of people just randomly raising a child. It takes educators. It takes law enforcement. It takes people in schools. It takes people in churches. It takes all those people and everybody standing shoulder to shoulder to give that child understanding and an atmosphere that this is what's acceptable. That's what actually puts morals into children, right? So stop underestimating your kids' ability to manipulate situations, manipulate your emotions, manipulate your relationships. Not sitting here saying that you're supposed to put anybody over your child, but call a spade a spade. Don't let them get away with it, right? Now, these 2 last ones are very, very important because you see it quite a bit nowadays. And it's not to say that people are bad parents. It's just that they're tired and they don't understand, I think, initially when they have children, what kind of work goes into them, right? So, tip number 4 is stop rewarding bad behavior. A lot of parents out there reward bad behavior. They make promises to their kids, or sometimes they just want to shut their kids up. Today you have kids who are ruled or raised by televisions. You have kids who are raised by cell phones and tablets and electronic devices because parents want peace. They want their time. You get your kid a PlayStation 4 not because he's been behaving correctly and doing what you need him to do. You do that because he rants and raves or she rants and raves and you want him to shut up. You can't reward bad behavior. You're reinforcing a lot of things. There's already a generational shift where the whole concept of spankings, the whole concept of discipline has been smeared. It's been kind of blurred. Everything now is illegal. People are afraid to take control of their children. But law enforcement can, and they will. And one of the major things they depend on is us rewarding bad behavior with our children. So the thing of it is that we have to be very mindful about what rules and what rewards we do. If kids are doing well, then we reward them. If they are not doing well, we cannot cave into a kid's demands because they won't shut up, they won't behave well, they won't stop doing something, so you give them your phone, so you give them this, you buy them this. Nah, you just reinforcing all that. They will go back to point 3. They will continue to manipulate you. All right, so we have to take control of that. Those kids, take whatever time you need. If you're in a relationship and that relationship is, this is affecting it, maybe you need to take a break from that relationship. If you have a trip plan, maybe you need to take a break from that trip. If you have certain things you do on a regular basis, maybe you need to take a break and reestablish those guidelines with your children so that they become, upstanding members of society as time go on, and you don't have to sit around, roll around on the ground with these kids when they hit their teens, right? And that flows into tip number 5. Stop allowing these kids to rule your house. Right? It kind of sounds like the same thing with rewarding bad behavior, but it's more like a combination of tips number 3 and number 4. You have a lot of kids who rule the house. They dictate terms about what you do, where you go, all those things. And I'm not talking about in the natural course of things. Of course, if you have young kids, you ain't supposed to be out partying and doing crazy things if your kids are at home and need you. These kids will, nowadays, what I mean by ruling the house, they will dictate how you spend your money, what you buy, what clothes they wear, who comes in, who doesn't come in. And we're not talking about in a protective sense. You may only have a certain budget for food and certain amenities that need to be, but it's not going to be good enough for them because the kids at school, they eat this cereal, or the kids at school, they wear these sneakers, the kids at school do this and do that, and that will put you in a poorhouse. And funny thing is they still won't respect you because they rule that entire house. They dictate how long you're on the phone. They dictate who you communicate with. They dictate everything if you allow them to. Be cautious about letting your kids rule your home. They dictate a lot of things. Now, that's not to say that I'm diminishing anything with your kids. Your kids are your treasures. They are the real legacy that you leave behind. But at the end of the day, that does not mean that you can't be firm with them. It does not mean that you can't allow, there's no room for discipline. Discipline and enthusiasm are not exclusive. They're not the enemies of each other. You need discipline. And be honest with you, the most well-adjusted kids will actually thrive in discipline. They become great adults. And the funny thing, too, is that if they don't get it from you, they're going to get it somewhere. And if this is the wrong kind of discipline, like they are constantly in trouble with the law and in trouble in school, if you don't do those things, that's actually going to be partially your fault. Well, listen, I'm going to get back to get to this paper. I just wanted to send that message to you guys. I hope it resonated with you. I hope it gave you some food for thought. I thank you so much for joining me. I want you guys to leave comments. I want you guys to like and share this video. Feel free to check out the Lascel, the M.B.A. Page on Facebook, and the Lascel M.B.A. without the conjunction in between on Instagram. Check out the same streams and these items on IGTV. I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a safe and productive day and a safe and productive week. I will see you then. Lascel, the M.B.A. Peace.